Welcome back to the Artie Lange Show. Talking with Jon Rineman, writer for Jimmy Fallon. November 29th and 30th will be at the East Providence, Rhode Island Comedy Connection. And from New Hampshire, went to Emerson. So now, what's next? What do you like as a writer? Like, what do you want to do? You want to do more on-camera stuff? You want to continue writing? You want to write a movie or something? Like, what do you think's next for you?
Well, I mean, the short answer is, everyone has their goal. I mean, the Tonight Show thing's right around the corner. So I know it sounds like the company line, but like really just gotta, I'm happy I'm doing that.
Great gig.
It's a great gig.
Writer, staff writer on the Tonight Show.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where it's like, even if I did it, for 6 months saying something that came out, I could say I did it, and I was there for it. And, hopefully I'll be there a while, but I'm happy about that. I think like anybody, it's like, I think there's, everyone has that on-camera thing. And I think that, especially as a stand-up comedian, definitely. I think that I found it was troubling for me to, I used to, in high school and college and stuff, I'd act, but I had more fun writing stuff and acting in it than I did just acting in something else. And it's just because, like, I remember in high school, we did the Neil Simon play Rumors. Yeah. And I remember I was giving suggestions, and the guy would say, hey, you're not better than Neil Simon. Like, this is Neil Simon. But, so I've always had that mindset, but I don't know. I mean, I wrote a pilot. I sold a pilot last year to NBC with Jimmy, and it didn't go anywhere.
Okay, so you've done you wrote longer form.
Yeah, and that was just strictly as a writer. But I don't know. I mean, I think it's difficult because I think stand-up. I identify so much with stand-up now that whenever I've been asked indirectly to do something for the show, it's never anything big, but I always kind of have shied away just because it's hard for me. It's hard for me to act and not look at the camera and make jokes. I just have that instinct. And I'm probably a terrible actor at this point because, like anything, if you haven't done it in a while, you have to learn how to do it again. But there's that. I mean, I think that it's tough because it's like, I think my dream growing up, and I think everyone's dream, especially if you're writing monologue jokes, everyone had like the Weekend Update dream. That's something everyone thought of. And I think that for me, the first person that got me into news jokes was Norm Macdonald, your buddy, your friend. Yeah. And I still, to this day, like I'll watch those, I'll watch his stuff on YouTube, if I'm taking a break or whatever.
He was the best at that.
He was my favorite. Yeah. And I loved Jimmy and Tina, and I loved Norm. Norm was my favorite. I mean, he was the one that I remember as a kid. When I see the clips now, I'm like, it makes me feel like a kid again.
I think he's really the best joke teller I've ever met in my life. Like
he's so funny.
Yeah, and to know him personally, like just it's that times a million when he's really not censored. Like just he'll say anything that comes into his head when he knows he's not on camera. Yeah. But that's I agree with you. It's inspirational as a writer.
Yeah, and I think that was always it. I mean, the thing you had to realize though is that's it's like signing LeBron James. It's like everybody in the world. I mean, when I hear these stories about like I was talking with Jimmy the other day because I knew that he didn't want to do Update, I guess, at first. And he's talked about that before.
Yeah, he was so great in sketches.
And then he had a point, but I even said, but it's like, from my standpoint, I couldn't get, like, when he explained it to me, he's like, I was always on, and as a character, I'd score. I was in sketches, I was great. I didn't, and then it made sense, but, from my standpoint, it's like, that's the best. I mean, it's like, you get to come out, tell jokes.
You're you.
You're you, and you don't have to interview any guests. Like, that's the thing, like, when I first got this job, like, I mean, when I got this job, we've had some people on that have gone on to do on-camera things. And so that's always, like Anthony and Morgan Murphy was there. And, of course, there's that thing that I think everyone's suspicious of everyone for wanting to be famous. Everyone there is like, what does this guy really want?
Especially in the comedy world.
Yeah, totally.
Everyone's cynical already.
Yeah.
And,
and I mean, I'm 30. So, I mean, even though I'm 30, I feel like I'm 60. I'm that kind of guy, but I've just been an old soul, I guess. But
try looking like you're 60.
Yeah. No, so I mean, realistically, it's still, I'm 30, whatever. Who knows what can happen? But people would ask, like, they're like, would you ever want to do what Jimmy did? And I'm like, I would make it halfway through a meeting about a guest before I'm like, nope. Like, just as soon as somebody's like, so-and-so went on vacation to the Alps, done. Like, I would just be like, I don't, like,
it's hard. It's hard.
Yeah, and it's just because it's like, you have to have, that's the great thing about guys like Jimmy is that they're engaging. They care about what people are saying. And it's like, the thing I always say to people is if the meeting would go, so what are you thinking for guests? And then I'd talk and they'd be like, well, I think that it's time to make the donuts guy is dead. Like that would be my first one. And then
that's always an instinct, especially for a guy who's in comedy. Your instincts are always somebody they don't want.
And then reunite all the bare naked ladies. That'd be my musical guess. But
that was the greatest thing about working with Howard. Howard was loyal to one person, and that was the guy in traffic on the LIE going to work.
Yeah,
I watched him turn down huge movie stars because he thought they were boring to interview Beetlejuice. Because he said that guy, Beetlejuice, is going to be more fun than a guy in traffic. That guy's not going to care what the guy from whatever said, you know. Yeah. And that was refreshing because he was able to get away with it. If you're the host of a network show, you can't get away with that. You got to interview, you know, everyone in the Big Bang Theory, you know, because they're on the network.
And I think that's the thing is that, like, you know, it's like, again, I mean, first of all, there's comedians out there now that are big name comedians. You know, they can sell out rooms or whatever, and they're still looking to score with their first show. So, I mean, it's like, I understand how it works. Yeah. But, I mean, I think that it's one of those things where I think people look at me now, especially my wife, because she has to live with me, but other people that know me, and they kind of get more of like a maybe if I hit the jackpot someday, like a, you know, like a sitcom, like a Larry David style Louis. I mean, those are two huge names I just threw out, but that kind of dark comedy, but I think with more of a family thing. Like, I think that's what people always get. People always say to me, "You seem like a dad, even though you don't have any kids." You know, like I'm that kind of lame guy.
Well, so something you could create that's your stuff that you can also star in.
And I think it's just that I remember me growing up a lot with my dad, and that's I think where I get a lot of my humors. He was a Navy guy. He was a Delta captain, very together, very good guy, and I was just a jerk kid. Like I was just a total jerk. And I think that's what I remember. That's what I feel every day. Is that I still feel. You know, halfway through every argument, I usually just stop because I'm like, I'm probably being a jerk, you know. But so I think that's that's one of the things that people say is that, you know, if not in it, maybe create it and give it this, you know, run it and have someone else play the guy. You know, I think that's the thing. But, you know, there's one of those things. Whenever it is true. I mean, it's, you know, there's, you know, on one hand, it's like there's so many shows now where people get to come out and tell jokes, whether it's, you know, talk shows.
All over the place.
Comedy Central's a billion of them.
Yeah.
And it seems like they almost pick, you know, 3 or 4 that are similar, and then the first one wins, and that gets to stay on the air. And so it's like, it's a lot of saturation, but it's like there is something to that thing of like, yeah, it just must be really cool to just come out and tell jokes. And
it's all the same show. Yeah. You're right. It's all the same show. It's like you come out, you tell jokes. There's a different angle on this. Wow. I don't know. We just talk about this. We just talk about that. And then you rework some bits that's, you know, been talk show bits forever, and then you know if you don't have a guest, that seems almost more original. Not having a guest, you know.
Yeah, and it's like, and you know, and when I look at, I think the reason I look up to guys like the you know the people like the Tina Feys and the Louis and Larry David, Mark Marons, and guys like people of the you know of the comedy community is that I really respect those shows, and I think part of that maybe it's kind of like the baseball player that wishes he could play basketball. You know, where you're just like, that's so cool, I want to do it. You know, I'll watch a Modern Family or Always Sunny in Philadelphia, another show I love. But, you know, at the same time, it's like, you put in a lot of work to writing news jokes and working on that. And that's been your thing. I mean, I've been doing that since I started freelance for 8 years. And, you know, there's that hesitation too. So when you think long term, you're like, well, maybe I want to try something else. But you're like, this is a skill, you know, and it wasn't easy to get. And there's some people that have come into this job and like we had a couple people who had never written monologue jokes before, and they walked in and did fine.
Right.
And I couldn't have done that. Like I had to figure it out. And so it's like you don't want to throw away all that. So I think, you know, it is one of those things where whenever you hear about, hey, so-and-so's getting a show where they get to come tell jokes, especially when it's someone that you're like, you know, we all have that moment where you're like, that guy or whatever. And
there's a lot of that going on.
Yeah, there is. We all have that. And it's both ways. But yeah, you get that brief second, you're like, hey, wait a minute, you know. But you know, every time at Fallon where I think, well, this is it. This is all I can do. This is all I can learn. Something else happens. And it's cool working with him just because, you know, he's gotten so comfortable in that monologue. And he's so great. When he tells a joke and he'll do an act out or something at the end, you know, I didn't know how to do that until I started working for him.
He's great at it. I do all the talk shows. As a guest on that show, I've been there like 5 years.
You're the best, by the way. You're our favorite guest. Whenever you're on the show, like you're like the one guest we'll all sit around and watch. I'm serious.
No, that's nice.
And it's like it's tears. We're crying, laughing so hard.
That means a lot. That does, especially for a comedy writer.
Yeah.
But you hit the nail on the head, man. You're going to be a writer on the Tonight Show. Enjoy that for a while. And
really
30's real young. Enjoy that for a while. Do the stand-up. You're just going to get funnier, and stuff will work out.
Yeah.
And listen, come back anytime, man.
Thanks,
come back
Artie.
Yeah,
Really
I would love to, get updates on how you're doing. And
thank you. We'll talk baseball next time.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Tell Jimmy I said hi.
Okay, we'll do.
And November 29th and 30th, you can see Jon at the East Providence, Rhode Island Comedy Connection. Check him out, and good luck with everything, brother.
Thank you very much, Artie.
Good job. We'll talk to you soon. Back into these words.
The Artie Lange Show, weeknights on Audience, only on DirecTV.